Be good to understand a little bit more why Amadeus is investing in new businesses. Obviously we talked about rail, airport and hotel. What's the rationale behind launching the new businesses portfolio?
I mean, we have been investing in new businesses for quite a while, let's call it that way. No? I mean, what we are trying to do now is to, I would say, reinvigorate and to focus on things that we have been doing in the past in, I would say, in a much better way, much more focused way, probably putting more investment to work at it, being more specific about what we want to do, being more performance driven, and being better in execution and better in strategy definition as well. So we have selected a specific set of areas, and those are hotel. We have been doing in the past something. Now we believe that we are probably on the right track to deliver certain things that come out of that history. No? Rail is a second area, as you know. Then we have airports. And then we have these three transversal areas called business intelligence that we have labeled also payments, and then new media. New media is a placeholder for different sets of activities or projects, being that a mobile platform, being that potentially digital advertising. We see user-generated content in there. We see also engaging with what we call new media players that are interested in travel services that need a very specific way of engagement because it's different set of services or different business model. So this is where we see sort of that activity going. No?
Okay, and within that, how important or how much of a success story, if you like, has rail been, particularly in the past year? There's been some significant agreements, and it feels to me as an onlooker that rail has been kind of very progressive and things have moved forward quite quickly.
Well, I would say that this is a marathon run, okay? And we have at best done the first few kilometers of that, okay? What we are doing is we are concentrating on creating what is a first GDS for rail. As you know, up until now, basically the rail distribution model has been a model of national distribution on their own systems. And what we are trying to do now is create the first, I would say, GDS. So there's a lot of investment going into what we call the rail distribution platform. We label it Amadeus Way, the acronym RDP. And then we are hooking up in the back end of that platform the different rail providers. In the world, there are many, many rail providers, yes. So we have short selected the ones we consider are bringing the critical mass, SNCF and Deutsche Bahn and Trenitalia, etc. Primarily European players today, but tomorrow hopefully we will be elsewhere outside Europe. So we are focusing on trying to hook them up to the platform, first commercially, yes, but also technically, in a sense that it is quite an undertaking to integrate those guys. So that's what we are absolutely concentrated on now. And then the idea is to bring them through the Amadeus indirect channels. So we are talking today of indirect distribution of railway companies. Tomorrow, our ambition, once we sort of have more or less done that, we would like to engage with railway companies in a more serious way about their indirect distribution as well. How to help them be better, or how eventually they would want to outsource some of the things they do today in the e-commerce area, for example. Why shouldn't they talk to us like the airlines are talking to us as well? I think we have a lot to offer there, no? But today it is about indirect distribution through the channels, being that corporate, being that TMC to corporate. We'll never go. So it's a B2B proposition. The online, the travel agency through Agent Track, the air rail display, as you know. Okay, so that's what we're doing.
That's very interesting. This morning when you gave your presentation, you talked, obviously you touched on that, but you also talked about this notion of customer centricity. Mm-hmm. Kind of maybe obvious, what does that actually mean? What does that mean to you in terms of the context of what you've been saying?
To me, customer centricity is around how can we understand, first of all, is understanding the customer better, but by the way, understanding the customer from the front to the end of what it means for him to get a travel service, okay? So what are his needs? how can we inspire him, how can we influence a very early inspirational process that then leads to a purchase. So through the whole chain of events, how to go with that customer without losing him up to the end of the trip and the post-trip sort of a wrap-up of what's doing, being that through a TMC with regards to the processes that take place at the corporate level, or being that eventually with a corporate leisure traveler with regards to gathering back his feedback about the experience, the travel experience. So the idea is in this world of service provisions where you're depending, for example, when you fly, you go into the airport, then you're on the airplane, then you're at the airport, maybe a hub, then another sort of transport mode, etc. That ideally you would never lose track of your customer, and you're able to feed customer relevant information into the different players so that they can take care of that traveler. So you never lose him as an individualized sort of being, okay?
Is that a vision, Paco, rather than a reality?
Well, I think it is a vision, but it's doable, okay? So I don't think it's something which is theoretical and cannot be done. I think it's technically solvable. I think when we talk about this ecosystem, that's what actually we're talking about. How can this ecosystem take advantage of that and talk to the customer along the chain? And I think Amadeus, because we are actually sitting with the indirect players on the travel distribution side, we are providing them the technology. Since we are then with the airports working today, since we are talking to the airlines into their IT systems and into their distribution systems, hopefully we will have a critical mass of hoteliers. Hopefully we will have a critical mass of railway companies. This is why we have chosen sort of these business units that fit nicely into this ecosystem.
It's a holistic view as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a vision about that. So these business units are not independent by themselves. No. The beauty would be if we are able to create those businesses in synergy with this ecosystem, so they cannot detach themselves. So the technological platforms or the databases or the know-how about the customer ideally should be one single instance and centric into the system, and whoever works in that ecosystem has an access to a one single instance which is consistent of that customer. That would be, let's say, the vision, the beauty of the vision. Now, can this be realized technologically or technically? Well, I think we're working on that, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. And I think what's important here is that is a little bit transformational. That's why we're engaging in that. So it's a different way of looking into that. I think that we have really, as Amadeus, a chance to do that, because actually there are very few players in this industry that have that footprint into the different sort of service areas, is to be able to say, I am running that ecosystem, you know. So this is why Amadeus had such a beautiful opportunity to develop that. You maybe have a Google that from another point of view, from the end user point of view, had such a large footprint. They come from the end user view of things, and we come from the infrastructure and from the technical infrastructure of things in a B2B proposition. So it's a different angle of attack, no?